There we go. If I could do black and white, I would, but I can't. So there you go. Whoop, it's playing again. I don't mean to play it again. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to loop. See, technical difficulty. It's live TV, kids. There we go. Welcome to Talk Wrestling here on the Jeff Meacham YouTube channel. 123 for life. Well, X-Pac's part of the nWo, and that's our boy X-Pac. We love him. We love his podcast, X-Pac 12360. Check it out. I think it's on Westwood 1. You can find it on the iTunes podcast, all that happy stuff. Today is Talk Wrestling. Today is about the nWo. Today is not about Money in the Bank, Jason Medina. So, meh. Today is the history lesson. We're not talking about current product today, kids. That'll be toward the end of going into Father's Day, because Father's Day weekend is, of course, Money in the Bank, and we'll get there. We'll talk about it on nodq.com. We'll talk about it here. But today is a history lesson because it was 22 years ago this week, Memorial Day week, Memorial Day Monday night, of course, May 27, 1926, that we first saw Scott Hall walk down the aisle in Macon, Georgia, which, by the way, I found out talking to, or not talking to, but listening to Tony Schiavone's podcast this week. They didn't even mention the fact that they were in Macon, Georgia. They did not mention one time they were in the Macon Coliseum during the episode of Nitro. How shady is that? Like, how completely messed up is that they didn't even bother to mention to the crowd and to the people, you know, to give Macon the rub, if you will. Pretty shady. Anyway, it was that day, May 27th, 1996, 22 years ago this week, that the beginning of the New World Order storyline, faction, whatever you want to call it, took shape. And it was Scott Hall that walked onto Nitro and declared open war on World Championship Wrestling and said, you guys want a war? You got one? There it is. Jason, you're killing me with the current questions. You get a timeout. Shame on you. Going on timeout. So you can listen better. There we go. Kyle, let's make you a moderator since you're here, Kyle. There we go. Welcome to Talk. Those of you that just joined us, welcome to Talk Wrestling. Today is a history lesson. Like I said, nWo history. I want you guys. TJS, welcome. I know you're having some trouble looking for your items for your trips, so take it. And yes, Kayfabe Candy Ass is here. Everybody's here. I love it. People are showing up. So let's talk about the nWo, and let's talk about the genesis, if you will, and where it happened. And let me get to Big Jeff's question right now. Were there too many members of the nWo? Absolutely. I said that when it was happening even 20 years ago. I said from the beginning, and this is no disrespect to my friend Mark Bagwell, because Mark is a wonderful human being, and he's one of my favorite people I've ever encountered. I consider him a friend, I really do. But it was the time that they entered him into the NWO. Not necessarily him because it was him, but because it wasn't one of the top tier guys in WCW at that moment. At the time you had the NWO, you had Hollywood Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, The Giant, Eric Bischoff, Ted DiBiase, and Six. And the bogus Sting, who really wasn't a top tier guy, but he pretended to be a top tier guy. You had that core group of people. And I think other than adding Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth in 1997, Elizabeth, of course, in 1996 when she was being forced to be the NWO, but once Randy joined, you had that elite nucleus of people. And I think everybody but them, kind of like Kenny has just said, the more people, the less elite. Now, I will say, yeah, even WWE pointed out there were too many members. People that were in the NWO said there were too many NWO members. So there you go. I understand Eric Bischoff's point of view in that. Kyle, we're not doing trivia. Oh my God. Ugh. Kyle, stop doing that. They needed more talent in the NWO because Bischoff's ultimate goal was to have NWO on Monday and WCW. Once they knew Thunder was going to happen, which was relatively early in the NWO genesis, the storyline of the NWO, here's the thing. They wanted to have more talent in the NWO. That way they could have NWO face each other on Monday nights rather than NWO versus WCW on both shows. So I get needing to bolster the NWO roster, but at its core, the NWO was this insurgent group, this outsider group almost, that had to take over WCW. And at the beginning, the recruitment kind of got diluted because you had guys like Bagwell and Scott Norton and Vincent, and Vincent was a WWF star also, but he wasn't a big star. He happened to be DiBiase's guy, so they brought him in. I think had they waited a little longer to develop the recruitment portion of the NWO, then it would have been a lot better on them in the long run, because you wouldn't have seen, like, that there's 20 limos in the NWO and everybody and their mother is putting on the black and white and everybody is joining what was once the elite faction. I'll get to that, Jeff. Good question. I don't think it would work in today's WWE or today's wrestling period, but I will make that list in my head as we go along here. Boston Punk, I don't mind. I don't mind the fact that people are wearing the NWO colors. I mean, I wear the NWO colors every day, all the 3 days a week. I've got this shirt, got the Wolfpack shirt, got my Hollywood Hogan shirt. So I don't mind that people in the entertainment world still honor the legacy of the NWO today. And Hall and Nash, I think it was Nash even, made Kylie, whatever gender it was, like you said, one of the Kardashian clan, made her an honorary Wolfpack member. So whatever, it is what it is, as we see it here on NoDQ.com. The NWO idea was not from New Japan, according to Eric Bischoff himself, on 83 Weeks. He did base it on a lot of different things, according to what he said on 83 Weeks. But he did mention that one of the influences was the New Japan, the old leaders versus the new leaders storyline that they did, and but it was more about Eric Bischoff, and I credit him, and people crap on Eric Bischoff. I will not do that on this show. If you're looking for me to crap on Bischoff on this hour, then you might as well just watch something else that's not live and watch something on demand. Watch the NWO history on the WWE Network. Break your DVDs out, your Blu-rays out. That's what I've been doing all day preparing for this. So Bischoff needs credit because he realized that the business itself was turning a corner, and I do credit Paul Lee and ECW for embracing the counterculture that was society back in 1996 and even earlier than that. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, kayfabe. I agree with that. That was one of the things that they did. I understand what you're saying, Boston Punk. It's not really non-fans, but you know, go back and look at the history of the Kardashian family. They were celebrities, and they, celebrities were, you know, influenced by and fans of the NWO back in the '90s. When, let's keep it really real here. O.J. Simpson was a big topic at the time the NWO was formed. He had just finished the trial. He had been found not guilty, which, depends who you ask. But Robert Kardashian was OJ's lawyer, and he had really, made a name for himself. So maybe the Kardashians, in some small form or another, were wrestling fans back then. So it really could mean anything. Am I saying that's the truth? Of course not. That's just that's conjecture I'm making. If we're going to talk legal terms. There you go. So Bischoff realized that the society was becoming counterculture. They were looking for the anti-hero rather than the hero. And, to WWE's credit, they saw that too, because they started to have the rise of Steve Austin as this anti-hero, this, he really was anti-hero. He was a full-blown heel in 1996, 1997. So, both companies were realizing that society was changing. McMahon took a little longer than Bischoff did, which is why you saw Eric Bischoff, the heel NWO member, before you saw Mr. McMahon, the on-screen mean, evil owner. I can't even talk today. It's going to be a long hour, methinks. But anyway, so Bischoff saw that, that there needed to be a shift in the direction of the company, because the shift in the company that was needed a few years before. Because remember, WCW was never a money-making entity going into the NWO storyline. They had never made profit. They were always working in the red, never in the black. Red and black. Red and black. I will do that. I'll do Bret Hart when I get there. I will do that. Thank you, Report Card Radio. I will definitely get to Bret Hart in the NWO momentarily. But I'm doing a whole history, so I'm getting you guys' reactions to the history. I appreciate the question, appreciate the feedback. Kyle, I wish you'd been born 10 years earlier too, because you could have seen the NWO do its thing. It would have been awesome to see that live as it happened. I lost my train of thought because I was just saying. So anyway, so there was a shift that needed. WCW had never made money, to a degree that it was, it never made a single dollar. They were operating always in the red, never in the black. They had never turned a profit. And Bischoff saw the need under his leadership. If he was going to be the executive producer, the executive vice president, the head of WCW, he had to change things. And one of the things he saw was society was shifting toward reality-based needs more than the world of fantasy. They wanted to see. I agree with kayfabe. Straight ages any day of the week. Virtue's here. Virtue, let me make you a moderator if you so dare. Society was changing. The world was changing back when the NWO was formed, and Bischoff saw that. Bischoff saw that, he needed to sign more talent and do something that dared to challenge the norms. He signed Scott Hall, and he signed Kevin Nash away from the WWF. And he realized that he had something on his hands with those two talents who were fresh. And I mean literally fresh off the WWF card less than a week before. When you talk about Scott Hall, May 19th, he's in the Garden. May 27th, he's in Macon, Georgia for Nitro. So, Bischoff has said on his podcast that there was the idea had formed in his head early on 26 as he was signing these two guys, but it really could have been any number of guys that he had signed. It just happened to be Hall and Nash's signing coincided with the idea in Bischoff's head. So Scott debuts, he comes in on Nitro, he challenges the Ken doll, he challenges Bischoff, he challenges billionaire Ted Turner, he references Macho Man, he references Mean Gene with the behind-the-scenes dirt, and then he declares war. He says, right there, I'm declaring war. Here it is. You guys want something? Here it is. And then he walked off. The only thing that kind of made it seem not as real as it could have been, he walked through the curtain after his promo. Rather than going back up through the crowd from whence he came, he... Report Card Radio, let's not mention that, please. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you, Virtue. Rather than walk through the crowd, he walked to the curtain, which, kind of, well, he's here, he's part of the story. It's all a game. He's part of a story. So That could have been done differently. However, he did come out at the end of the night, did Scott Hall. It's okay. He came out and, got right in Bischoff's face and right in Heenan's face. And Heenan, you can see Heenan kind of look around like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And Bischoff was right. He sat tall. He's like, what are you going to do? Who's this we? Who's the three people you're talking about? And there they were. And, Scott came out the following week and got up in Sting's face. And Sting got up in his face. Sting came to the announce table and, stood up for WCW, which would be a formula going forward. Sting defending the name of WCW right up until he joined the Wolfpack 2 years later, which again was a huge thing. And we were off to the races. Sting represented WCW, the WCW wrestlers standing tall against these outsiders. Who was going to be next? Who was going to be the guy, the big surprise that Scott Hall promised? And here he came, 7 foot tall, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. Here comes Diesel off of WWE TV, WWF TV, and all of a sudden he's there's no name for him. And we'll get to Sting saying that. We'll get to Sting's promo and the fall brawl in a moment. Virtue. Yes, Ted DiBiase should have been bigger than Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff brought himself into that role because he saw the thing running. And rather than let DiBiase be the role he was hired for, Bischoff took that role. Big mistake, I think. Although Bischoff as a heel, nobody can deny Bischoff being a great heel, but I think it was too soon. I think they should have let DiBiase be the mouthpiece for long after he was. And, it kind of made DiBiase seem awkward. He ended up being Hogan's belt carrier, which is bullshit for a guy of DiBiase's verbal and, talent like that. Ted was hired to be the mouthpiece in NWO. He was hired to be their mouthpiece. The guy that was at ringside managing the NWO and, be their benefactor like he was in WWF. He was the benefactor of Brother Love and things like that. The $1 Million Man carried over into WCW. He just wasn't called the $1 Million Man. He was just Ted DiBiase. But he still was the financial backer of the NWO. That's why you could get the paid announcers. That's why you could sign talent like the Giant and sign talent like Sean Waltman and things like that. Ted DiBiase brought those guys in with his financial resources. There you go. So Kevin Nash comes in, makes an impact, uses the wrong word when he's talking about play. He calls adjective. It's actually a verb, present tense, but that's okay. That's okay. Kevin Nash is there. Bischoff challenges them to come to the Great American Bash the following Sunday, and Bischoff will let them know who he's got lined up to take them on at the following pay-per-view, the Bash at the Beach. And there we were. Bischoff goes to the Great American Bash and tells the guys, we don't have the opponents yet. I'll tell you on Nitro. Scott and Kevin don't like that. Scott hits him in the gut. Kevin Nash jackknifes him through the stage, through a table on the floor. Tony and Dusty react like gangbusters. They go crazy. Bischoff's carted off. We go forward to the Great American Bash, and we wonder what is the fate of Eric Bischoff as we go off the air. Then, as the weeks move on, Mean Gene comes out. I think it was on Nitro they announced. Maybe on Saturday Night even. They announced that it's going to be Sting, Lex Luger, and the Macho Man Randy Savage going up against the Outsiders and whoever they brought in as their third man. Let's see here. Let me get to the thing. DiBiase was led to the Steiners because I'll have to watch the shows again. I think he saw the light of being, he was a man of God by then, so I think his character realized how bad it was to be doing these things, and he went with Scott and Rick. Of course, it didn't work out because Scott didn't end up. I did see the documentary, Kyle. Price of Fame. Highly recommended, as Interstate Kyle just said. It is on Amazon. It is on Ted DiBiase's website. I think it's on Amazon Prime Video. I think you can watch it on demand on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch that. So I cannot recommend it enough. I meant to mention it all this time. I've had it for like 2 months. I never mentioned it. I feel terrible. The Price of Fame. Created and directed by Ted DiBiase Jr., starring both DiBiases. Very, very awesome. Very awesome documentary about Ted DiBiase's life and about his reaffirming his faith and coming back to his family. Very well done. What is my take on the Juggalos Championship Wrestling? I see that a lot of the members of the NWO joined the Juggalo World Order, like Scott and Kevin and Sean Waltman. I don't really follow the JCW, but I know the Juggalos are a loyal fan base to ICP and loyal to their products, so more power to them. I'm not that one of those guys, but I do like the fact that they are such wrestling fans and they really go out of their way to display their wrestling fandom when they're doing the JCW and, of course, the JWO. So, very cool. Hello, CJ. All right, so we're heading to the Bash at the Beach. Scott and Kevin are the outsiders, named by Mean Gene as the outsiders. Still haven't said Hall and Nash yet. They still haven't said Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. They're just the outsiders by Mean Gene Okerlund's naming. And we've got Sting, Luger, and Macho Man. And the intrigue around Daytona, going into the Bash at the Beach, is who is the third man? Who will join Scott and Kevin at Bash at the Beach? No comment, kayfabe. And keep it kayfabe. Yeah. And we get to Daytona, and according to Eric Bischoff, and according to 83 Weeks, and according to Eric's book, and even Hulk's book, there was no... It wasn't for sure that Hogan was going to be the guy. And Sting was the backup. Sting was the... Okay, well, if Hulk doesn't do this, you know, who do we get? And Sting was asked by Eric Bischoff, can you do this? And even Sting was unsure about being... you know, turning bad after so long of building up his babyface reputation and building the trust of the fans. Could he be the bad guy? No, not Razor Ramon. This is an actual bad guy, an actual heel. And much to Sting's relief almost, although people have said he's been disappointed in that he was disappointed that he couldn't be the third guy. Hulk showed up, of course. Everybody's down in the ring, and here comes Hulk Hogan, the red and yellow hero, Superman, to save the day. And he drops the leg on Randy, his brother, his frenemy, if you will, because they went back to WWF, both friends and enemies. And there they were. And Hogan calls the outsiders in. The leg drops the living poop out of Macho Man 3 or 4 times. And it was. I remember watching it later on replay and watching. I watched Scramble TV because that's what I did with wrestling videos. I couldn't afford it. I was too cheap. I was 13. I didn't have any money. And I remember the reaction most of all because you could hear the people just cheering. Mabel was not the third man. There's a T-shirt by that on 83weeks.com. Check it out. Funnier than hell. People were saying it was Mabel. Oh my God, how could Mabel be the third man? No disrespect to Nelson Wright, I think is his name. Wow, holy moly. And people did care who the heels partners were, Report Card Radio, because it is a great shirt. Because there was the intrigue of who's going to join the WWF guys, who's going to join the Nelson Frazier. Thank you, Ricky Lawson, appreciate that. Sorry, Nelson, and your family. Maybe you rest Nelson Frazier Jr. even. There you go. Virtually right. It could have been anybody but Hogan. Hogan being the third guy legitimized the NWO's influence, their legacy, and influence their takeover WCW, because here was the guy that literally pulled WCW out of the hole that they have dug themselves the previous 6 years. And then 2 years later, Hogan says, well, you guys didn't appreciate me, so stick it, brother. And here he is. Hulk Hogan's bad. He's evil. And people are just littering the ring with garbage. You had a fan try to jump in the ring, and the outsiders take him out. A fan literally jumped the rails and tried to get at Hogan. That is, we talked about white hot heat on the No DQ review this week. That is white hot heat. When a fan is jumping the rails, trying to get at you because you did something so heinous, holy crap, is that white hot heat. And he cuts the promo. Gene comes in the ring, and Mean Gene is crestfallen character-wise. He can't believe that his big buddy, his hero Hogan, had done such a terrible thing. And Hogan just rips into everybody, rips into Bischoff and Turner and the fans, and you know the Johnny Come Latelys in the back that came along when Hogan was in his prime. These kids were in high school pumping gas in their car to get to high school. Just a great promo. Really set the tone for the NWO going forward. Named in the New World Order, kind of almost by it seemed like by accident. Of course, Bischoff says now, and he said back then, that it was the whole idea was to call them the NWO, the New World Order. If I get the words on there, New World Order. Yes, Hogan's black beard. It was dyed black, I believe. I think he said it was dyed in both of his books. I meant to shave this beard. It looks like absolute crap. Should have just dyed it in grew with Fu Manchu, right? The big old belt should probably stay retired. I like the Big Gold Belt being in the hands of a private collector, but I'm working on trying to get a documentary made for. It'd be cool to see the Big Gold Belt back. But I actually enjoy the belts they have now in WWE. Anyway, so they go forward. There's three guys, Hogan, Hall, and Nash, and they're just attacking everybody in sight all the time. The big takeover at Disney World at the MGM Studios, where the Outsiders attack Arn Anderson, the American Males, Women's Bagwell, and Rey Mysterio, and Savage was after them, jumps in the limo takes off, and Nitro just goes almost completely dead air. You've got the announcers talking about it, but people in the Orlando area around Disney World actually called 911 because they thought they were seeing a gang war on Nitro, and real ambulances show up and real fire trucks, and the WCW guys kind of had to smarten them up and go, this is chill. So they kept them on the air. They load the guys in the ambulances. You see Sting and Ric Flair both get into an ambulance with Bagwell. I think it was Bagwell, and Double A, of course, is in there too. Flair and Sting are in the same ambulance. That was the story that we went with because, wow, it was a moment in time that heels and baby faces of WCW were uniting against this common enemy. The enemy, of course, being the nWo. Kayfabe, I agree with you. Much less chance, much more trash. Again, white hot heat. When you get trash thrown at you, whether you're in the ring or cutting a promo or whatever, you've got the audience hating you, and you've got what Ricky Lawson just said, captivating television. You've got people wrapped around your finger, and you've got that heat. Probably so. No DQ virtue. No DQ virtue. Virtue. The mirrored video was backstage. I understand what you're saying, Aaron. But Aaron's here. Hi, Aaron. Anyway. So yeah, they go forward, and the first guy we see come out and join the nWo, although we don't know it at the time, because Teddy DiBiase comes down in the crowd and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, next week 5. And we think, okay, so he's going to join the Horsemen, 4 or 5. The next week, the Giant comes down during the midst of nWo versus WCW Brawl to apparently save the Dungeon of Doom. He joins nWo. Mirror, Jeff likes Star Trek. Yes, Mirror, thank you. Great episode of Star Trek. One of the best they ever did. Everything's reversed on my... Am I backwards? Is it OWN? Is that what it is? I'm reversed, Big Jeff? I didn't know I was doing... That's not good. Crap. I didn't know why it's doing that. Anyway, we'll go forward with it. I'm not sure why I'm backwards. Well, hell. I don't know why, though. Oh, well. I wonder if they mirrored the video because I had nWo music playing. I had the nWo intro. Maybe that's why. Oh, well. Anyway, we're live. Live TV, kids. So Giant joins nWo, DiBiase joins, and then one of the greatest storylines ever come out of WCW, period, not just in the nWo time, but any time in WCW's history. We are led to believe that Sting has joined the nWo in the big limo fight with Luger out in the parking lot at the arena, and we think Sting has turned to the dark side, and lo and behold, it was a bogus Sting. And we go into Fall Brawl, nWo versus WCW. What was cool with the WCW team was it was going to be the Horsemen originally, according to the storyline, and Sting and Luger convinced Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, let's team up us four. And when Sting turned, Flair and Arn went, well, you know what, Luger, you were a Horseman once. Of course, so was Sting. But it'll be just us three. And the bogus Sting comes out in the NWO side, and here comes our Sting. Here comes the real Sting. And he cleans house, and then he does this to Luger and everybody else and walks off. The NWO wins. They get the right to challenge for any title they want any time, and they get more. They get their paid because following us, people the New World Order, haha, not anymore. So WCW was paying for NWO's time. We found out why a couple months later, going into World War III, because Eric Bischoff is behind it all. he's not just the the head of WCW, he's the head of the NWO. And it wasn't just Ted DiBiase's money. It was Eric Bischoff's scheming and his manipulations and his control of World Championship Wrestling that would that would lead people to join the NWO. And yes, I remember that. I actually had that DVD somewhere. I can't access it without causing a huge ruckus and noise back there, so I won't get it out. But yes, the bogus Sting is on the back of the WWE Sting DVD, the history of Sting, the best of Sting, whatever it was called. Yeah, that was a big old bonehead move there on WWE's part. Anyway, so we go into 1996 and 1997, and Sting comes out, cuts the promo, and says, "The only thing for sure about Stings is nothing for sure." So Sting leaves. He goes into the rafters. He adopts the crow-like gimmick, and CG, I am a fan of the Major League Baseball. I'm an Angels guy primarily, but also the Dodgers. I'm an LA boy. There you go, Southern California boy. Even the Padres. I kind of like the Padres to a certain extent. That'll make Rick Ellis happy. NWO is the gold made of black and white at the days where they go. Yeah, I agree with that. Hello, Scott. Hello, Dylan. Go Braves. I don't mind the Braves so much. My grandmother hated it. My grandmother actually loved the Braves. I take that back. My grandmother, who was from the South, loved the Braves when she was alive. No, you're not my son, Dylan. My son Dylan's actually playing Xbox in there with his friend. But okay, Dylan, can we get the toy cleaned up? Yeah, you might want to make sure the dog isn't dying. Thank you. Dog's destroying the toy. There's stuffing everywhere in the other room. Aaron and Kyle are having the real moment on YouTube. There you go. So in 1997, we get the slow, and I mean slow burn build of Sting. Is he NWO? Is he WCW? Where does his loyalties lie? And we go through the first 3 minutes of 1997, and we're not sure because Sting's attacking everybody in sight, including at Starrcade when he almost helped the Giant beat Luger, but Luger beat the Giant, of course. The Giant gets kicked out of the NWO after Starrcade because he dropped the ball 3 times, brother. 3 strikes, you're out. The Giant leaves. As they're building this, we get Bagwell joining. Bischoff comes out and does the 30 days, you're in or you're out. Bagwell joins. Norton joins. Masachono joins. The Great Muta joins. Vincent, of course, is brought out during the build to Fall Brawl with DiBiase. And the recruitment begins, and everybody, GDP attacks Hall and Nash. Thank you, Aaron. At the beginning of January 1997 at the Superdome, not Silverdome, right, Hulk? Superdome, brother. DDP is the first guy to really touch NWO. He diamond cuts Scott. No, not the Bullet Club. Bullet Club is one sweet, not two. Bullet Club is one sweet, not too sweet. DDP attacks Scott Hall and dumps Kevin Nash over the top rope and goes to the crowd. And we get another slow build. We get DDP building toward a feud with, it ended up being the NWO, but primarily it was Macho Man Randy Savage. Ricky Lawson, I mentioned this earlier. When guys like Bagwell and I hate calling Mark a jobber because he really wasn't a jobber, I don't think. But, the jobber guys at the NWO, the B team, if you will, that even before it was called the B team, diluting that core. But again, Bischoff needed more guys to join the roster than NWO, so it could be NWO, WCW, fighting against each other. Go Capitals. I'm going for Vegas, Virtue. I have friends in Vegas who I'm going to see in July, so I'd like to see them happy and have a Stanley Cup with them. I like Ovechkin. I like the fact that he's going to have a Stanley Cup if he wins, because I respect the Capitals, but I'm rooting for Vegas. So there you go. So we kind of go on 1997, and we finally find out in March at Uncensored when the NWO team defeats Team WCW and Team Piper. And hello, Mike. And Sting comes down from the rafters. The NWO is celebrating, and he attacks NWO. We know exactly where Sting's loyalty lies. He is a WCW guy. He is Sting, the franchise, the savior of WCW. And then we build from that moment to Starrcade. And everything that happens in between Uncensored and Starrcade is the build to Starrcade. You talk about Savage and DDP. You talk about Rodman coming in and joining the NWO at Uncensored, and then we get to Bash at the Beach, and Rodman and Hogan, of course, lose to Luger and Giant. Luger wins the world title in August from Hogan at the Palace of Auburn Hills, loses it back to Hogan at Road Wild because of Rodman dressed up as Sting. So many bogus Stings back then. It was stupid. I thought it was stupid anyway. Fall Brawl again comes up. The NWO once again defeats WCW. This time it is the Horsemen. Kurt Hennig joins the NWO, turns on the Horsemen after taking Arn Anderson's spot, as we said on WCW TV. And Scott Hall wins World War III, gets a shot, we think, at Hogan, because it's Hogan's world champion. World War III winner gets a shot at Hogan. So are we going to see Hall versus Hogan going into 1988? Time will tell. Sting officially signed. He's saying for months and months he doesn't want anybody in NWO except Hogan. He wants Hogan as his first match back. He gets the first match back. It is Hogan, and Sting shows up not in 100% game shape, according to Bischoff and Hogan. Sting wasn't in this head. Can we check on the door or something, please, instead of her barking? Crap. Okay. Instead of showing up in mental, physical, 100% shape, we get Sting, who doesn't seem like really ready to go. And, of course, Nick Patrick botches the finish with the 3 count. And we get into the controversy of Starrcade 97. And that is, according to the WCW book, and, of course, according to a lot of people, the beginning of the end. Starrcade 97... represented the biggest moneymaker at WCW at the time, the biggest moment, and of course, it led to the end because the finish was so botched. And yes, Sting, our hero, finally had regained the WCW Championship and brought it back to the fold, and people farted on the finish because it was so convoluted and so ridiculous. Just awful, just awful. And we go into 1998, and Sting gets the title back after controversy, gets him stripped of the title. We go to Thunder's debut. And we're really trying to push toward the NWO splitting off and getting Nitro and WCW getting Thunder, according to Eric Bischoff. Sting should have been absolutely unstoppable, but like I said, Ricky, he showed up not in 100% mental or physical game shape. So Bischoff and Hogan kind of went, not sure what to do with that. And 1998 is the formation, the split, right down the middle, brother, as Fonzie would say, right down the middle, Daddy, of the NWO. You get Savage is the first guy to really show opposition to Hogan and Hogan's ego. Hogan's ego coming into play. Yeah, the fact was Hogan beat him up straight up, clean, and pinned him 1, 2, 3 clean with a clean pin. And Bret Hart's coming out to storyline, react to it as a fast count. It didn't. The fast count never happened. Nick Patrick botched the finish, and Sting botched his arrival, being physically and mentally not in game shape. Starrcade ended up being a disaster in the long run. It should have been the greatest thing ever happened to WCW and the NWO. And they totally botched everything about it. So, Savage reacts to Hogan's ego, wanting him to be the championship. Nobody else in the NWO can be the world champion except him. It's my title. I keep it in the family, brother, but as long as it's me. Savage reacts. Nash reacts. Signs in with Savage. And while this is happening in the NWO, while they're splitting up, Steve Austin is really on the rise in 97 in the WWF. And really hits his zenith at WrestleMania in March of 98 when he beat Shawn Michaels' title, Shawn Michaels for the championship with Mike Tyson's help. Big moment for the WWF. 2 weeks later, two weeks later, the WWF beats WCW in the ratings war for the first time in 83 weeks, right, Eric? And the WWF's off to the races after that. They trade victories the rest of the year. The night after Halloween Havoc 1998 is the last time the WCW actually wins the ratings war, and only because they had botched Halloween Havoc's 98 finish so bad in terms of broadcast time that they showed the replay. They showed Goldberg versus DDP live on Nitro, which pissed off the cable companies, but it gave Nitro a spike in the ratings that night. So there you go. But in 1998, you had the Wolfpack form. You had Nash and Savage and Conan, and the recruitment from WCW of Sting and Luger. Rude and Hennig briefly joined the Wolfpack, and then they turn and join Hollywood, Hogan's side. Scott Hall shocks the world at Slamboree by joining NWO Hollywood, costing him and Nash the World Tag Titles. The Giant, of course, goes back to the NWO, joins up with Hogan's team, just to spite Kevin Nash. We get Sting and Giant become the World Tag Team Champions, but then they're feuding. Sting wins the World Tag Team titles undisputed at the Great American Bash. Sting picks Nash, and we go off with the NWO versus Hollywood versus Wolfpack storyline on that front. 1998 is kind of a cluster for the NWO, and it leads to Kevin Nash winning World War III for the Wolfpack for himself. He gets the shot at Goldberg, who had defeated Hogan at the Georgia Dome, of course, in July of '98. Toppling Hogan after back and forth with Hogan, Savage, and Sting in World 98 with the title. Hogan was champion, loses to Goldberg at the Georgia Dome, and Goldberg runs the entire rest of the year, 173 wins between September '97 and Starrcade '98. Just blows through everybody, including the Giant, including Hogan, including the NWO, including WCW guys, and we get to Starrcade 1998. Here we are, a year later. Bret Hart, I mentioned, asking something about Bret Hart earlier. Bret Hart joined WCW. Joined WCW as a WCW guy. Almost right away joined the NWO side as an NWO Hollywood recruitment guy. They diluted Bret Hart so badly that he went from WCW hero, his own version of a hero, NWO Hollywood recruiter, swarmy heel, gets hurt, goes on the shelf, comes back in 1999, challenges Goldberg, goes through that year, of course, he loses his brother, goes through Starrcade as a hero, wins the world title, gets hurt at Starrcade 99 against Goldberg, joins NWO Silver and Black, NWO 2000, if you will, and then he retires. So Bret Hart's legacy in WCW was very, very poor, unfortunately for him and for the company. All right. So, yeah, again, Vince being in there too. Vince, Hogan, Vince, Austin, and Rock, and Foley, of course, killing himself like you guys have said here recently in the chat. Those four guys, Triple H, The Undertaker, really bolstered the WWF into taking the war and going off in their own direction and winning the war consistently from late 1998 all the way to the end. There was no war. And then the WCW tried to put the NWO back together. Of course, the big finger poke of doom in the Georgia Dome. 6 months after Goldberg beats Hogan, Nash beats Hogan. Hogan beats Nash with the infamous finger poke of doom. And just another catalyst to the end of WCW. The NWO reforms as the Elite under the Wolfpack banner, red and black. The rest of the guys are the B team, the black and white. I said on a post a year ago this week, I think it was this week, that had the NWO Elite stayed Elite, it was Hogan, Hall, Nash, Bagwell, Steiner, even Disco, Eric Bischoff, David Flair, Torrie Wilson, Scott Steiner, I believe, was there. I think I said that already. If those guys were the NWO going up against WCW, it would have been a lot better, and the B team could have been just shuffled into the mix and kind of done their own thing. The fact of the matter is, the NWO Elite was not an elite because they got hurt and they had the black and white to deal with. And by that point, the NWO really became an actual. Hogan got hurt, and Scott Hall got hurt, and Steiner and Bagwell ended up feuding over the loss of the TV title. I believe it was Rick Steiner or Booker T. I forget which one it was. I'm pretty sure it was Booker T. Maybe I don't remember who it was. It doesn't matter. So the NWO kind of tapered off, and that going into Spring Stampede, you had Hogan, who had turned babyface against a now heel Ric Flair at Uncensored with the First Blood match. It wasn't a First Blood match. Again, what a cluster. The NWO tapers off and they disappear from TV. Nash is still wearing that tie-dye NWO shirt. The honor of Hollywood Hogan, who DDP had taken out. So Nash faced DDP for the championship when DDP won it at Spring Stampede. The worst member of the NWO by far was both Virgil and Horace Hogan. But Stevie Ray was bad too. Brian Adams wasn't a good NWO. But pretty much the B team 99, those were the guys. The reason they weren't the elite guys because they weren't elite. They were pretty terrible. So there you go. DX, of course, comes in 1997 and 98. Michaels and Hunter and Rude and Chyna. Of course, Rude ended up joining NWO because he didn't agree with the finish in Montreal. So Rude joins NWO later. And then, of course, Triple H takes over DX and takes them into the next level with the DX Army. And then Triple H turns on 99 and joins the corporation and becomes his own guy, becomes the game. So the WWF is really firing all cylinders in 98, 99, and 2000. While WCW, with the NWO kind of coming and going, falls on their ass. And the NWO reforms at Starrcade 1999, the night after Starrcade, I should say. After being gone most of the year, Nash retires against Hogan. Hogan had turned to the red and yellow by then in August 9th, of course, the big red and yellow return. Road Wild that Saturday. Hogan beats Nash in a retirement match. Nash goes away. Hall's off TV by this point. He's still injured, I believe. And then the Outsiders kind of come back in late '99 and are disrupting TV. They're wearing the Outsiders t-shirts with the little NWO logo, so we don't know if the NWO is coming back. Bret Hart wins the world title in a tournament after the big controversy with Goldberg and Sting and everything at Halloween Havoc '99. After Sting had turned heel against Hogan, I'm getting tired of just mentioning all these terms. It's hurting my throat. There's so much convoluted nonsense. CJ, I'll talk about that next week. How about that? Thank you for your question, though. I'm talking about NWO history, so we'll move forward on that next week. Trying to stay on topic here, guys. I go off into the weeds if I get too many questions off topic, so forgive me. Night after Starrcade, Bret relinquishes the championship after the controversial finish with Roddy Piper being the referee with Goldberg. We don't know at the time, but Bret's career is going to be over because of the concussion he received after that ridiculous kick from Goldberg. So they go forward with the storyline. Even though Bret's hurt, he kind of keeps it quiet. Bret, Hall, Nash, and Jarrett at the time form the new NWO, the Silver and Black. The band is back together. They go into 2000. They recruit Scott Steiner joins NWO again. The Harris brothers are part of the group. The NWO girls like Tylene Buck and April Hunter, and those girls are all joining. They become a faction again. They become a big super group again. But again, Bret's hurt. He leaves WCW TV. He forfeits the World Championship. Jeff Jarrett forfeits the U.S. title due also to a concussion, but gets it back the night after sold out. Kevin Nash becomes the commissioner. He feuds with Sid. And Silver and Black like Bischoff's hair, exactly. Thank you. And again, the NWO peters out by Uncensored, and of course, in the Spring Stampede that year, the New Blood versus Millionaires Club forms. Bischoff returns to TV after being gone the second half of '99 and in 2000. Russo joins with him after being by himself in 1999 and 2000. So we get this New Blood versus Millionaires Club, which again is a rehash, the NWO versus WCW. And that's the last time we see the NWO and WCW is early 2000, but we see them again in the WWF in 2002. They return to mainstream television, WWF TV at No Way Out. They cost Stone Cold the WWF Championship in a match with champion Chris Jericho. We get Hogan versus Rock at Mania. We get Austin versus Hall at Mania. Hogan, of course, gets the babyface reaction despite being the heel that ran Rock over in an ambulance with a semi-truck. And Hogan turns babyface, gets the red and yellow back on. Hall and Nash move on to NWO. X-Pac rejoins. Big Show rejoins. Flair becomes this heel owner and somehow joins but doesn't join. He recruits Booker T. Kevin Nash brings in Shawn Michaels. There's no way the WWF fans are ever going to boo Hogan, so that's why it didn't work, kayfabe, exactly. Shawn Michaels is brought in, and Michaels literally kicks Booker T out of the NWO. Goldust tries to join. It's very, very... And Nash hurts his bicep, comes back, tears his quad the night he returns, much like his buddy Triple H. The Clique is the Quad Brothers, apparently. And the following week on WWE TV, by then, Vince McMahon comes out to the Rock House music, NWO music, and he says NWO is no more. And that night brings out Eric Bischoff as the new Raw General Manager. So that's the last time we see the NWO actively involved in WWE, WWF storylines. And they've come back a few times since then. They had the band reform in TNA with Hogan, kind of like being on the outside with Hall, Nash, and Waltman, and Eric Young joined that, and they kind of had the similar, they had the Wolfpack music. Immortal was formed with Hogan being the bad guy. They had the NWO style music. And then, of course, Hogan returns in 2014, and they bring in Hall and Nash to come down with them at Hogan's birthday, and they kind of have their on-screen reunion. Hogan tears away the red and yellow to reveal this. Hogan's birthday, they come back with X-Pac the following January at Raw Old School, I believe it was. They came out at WrestleMania 31 in 2015 when the NWO battled DX during the Triple H versus Sting match. Hogan gets himself fired for the racial comments he made in 2000. Well, he didn't make it in 2015, but they were broadcast in 2015. And that's the last time we see the NWO on WWE TV, was that moment, WrestleMania 31, 3 years ago, with Hogan, Hall, Nash coming down the ramp, NWO music's playing, the crowd pops. Aaron was there. And, Quad Brothers, yeah. So that's the legacy of the NWO. The legacy of the NWO is immediate, impactful success in WCW, dilution, watered down, the albatross that ended up bringing the company down, along with a lot of other things. The main thing, of course, bringing WCW down was the loss of the TV deal by Ted Turner's company. It wasn't even Ted Turner's company by then. Jamie Kellner, of course, kills the TV deal going into the purchase by Bischoff and Fusionet. The NWO will always be the most influential heel faction of the Attitude Era, which was the most popular time of the business. The Horsemen definitely influenced factions going forward, but it was the NWO and, of course, DX on the WWF side that really embodied the Attitude Era, embodied the biggest time in the business, embodied the attitude, the counterculture of professional wrestling at that time and society at that time. So, I went about 50 minutes. My voice is tired. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back Tuesday, Meach's Musings live. I believe we'll be at Undecided Apparel that week. We'll talk about, I haven't decided on a topic yet. We'll get to the topic next week here on Talk Wrestling. We'll talk about another history lesson. We'll talk about, who knows. I'll think of the topic tonight as I go to sleep, and we'll post it tomorrow morning on Twitter and on YouTube. Both shows, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, here on this channel, youtube.com/Jeff Meacham. You can also go to youtube.com/AaronRiffNoDQ for all the latest of No DQ Live, the No DQ Review. You can check out Virtue's Rage on Facebook, facebook.com/David Southworth. I hope I'm saying that right, David. Virtue. You can check out Virtue's Rage each and every week on Facebook after No DQ Live on Tuesdays, after SmackDown. And there you go. We will see you guys next time for more Talk Wrestling.